Greetings, beautiful people. I hope you're having a beautiful and blessed day. If you aren't, just remember, God loves you. I love you. You are so loved. Today, I got a quick little topic for you guys about higher perspectives and lower perspectives. On this podcast, I tend to talk about point of views and perspectives a bit just because I'm a very open-minded person, and I would love if the people that listen to me also would be open-minded. However, I know to each his own, we're all different. But I try to at least, put out that energy of free thought or free thinking. That way others can do the same. So I love putting out podcasts like this just to not necessarily tell, but help people or bring awareness to different perspectives, because it's not necessarily that's something that people think about on a daily basis. I don't walk around being like, oh, am I thinking from a higher perspective right now in this moment? Like, it's kind of something that a skill that you have to build, where you can do it without having to, if that makes sense. But it's good to know what a higher and lower perspective is, and how you can get to it and all of that. But if you want to know what kind of a foundation or back piece to why I even make podcasts like this specifically, go listen to my POV podcast or my perspective podcast. The perspective one is one of the earliest podcasts I've done, so I'm sure it's a little different, but definitely go listen to those. Those will give you a pretty good idea of at least how I think or view things, if that makes sense. But anyways, let's just jump into this whole thing. So we're going to start from a lower perspective and build our way up to a higher. So basically, think of your mind. Think of a ladder in your mind. And at the bottom of this ladder is your lower perspective, right? And then you climb to the top of the ladder and you're at the higher perspective. Some people may call this their lower selves. Some may call it their higher self. Right. Bottom line is, in order to get to either space, you're going to have to do the work. You can either choose to stay where you are mentally in a lower perspective, or you can do the work to climb to a higher one. But that's all up to you 100%. So when it comes to being in a lower vibrational space or having a lower perspective, you get caught up in the details and the states of how you feel. You are very much more aggravated by the things that are happening around you, circumstances, situations, kind of going through life with a worry but complaining attitude. So you complain about all your day-to-day activities. In this lower space, you see things very small. It's like a small picture. You don't see the bigger picture of everything. You're kind of focused on what's in front of you versus what's around you, what will happen, all of that. It's more of, man, I have this, and this task on my plate right now. It's a lot to handle. I know I have to handle it, but I don't want to. Then you get aggravated, stressed, worried, and in this perspective, you're very much suppressed. In a lower perspective, again, you're more worried, frantic, stressed. It seems like life has endless problems, and you feel very overwhelmed. Now, most of us probably feel like that right now, right? I know I definitely was feeling like that in the beginning of the week, to the point where I was like, I can't even go to work today. And when you're in that lower perspective, it actually dictates the experience of life that you have, which is crazy but true. Obviously, when you're not happy, you're not going to have a great time in life. Things are going to seem harder than what they are. But that's kind of the importance of having a higher perspective, is because then you can kind of look at things neutrally and kind of really discern whether or not something is truly bad, good, or even whether or not you need to stress, worry about it, or have aggravated feelings towards whatever situation, circumstance, or experience that you're having. At a lower perspective, it feels like everything is zoomed in. So again, it's like it's focused. You're focused on what's in front of you or what you have on your plate versus the big picture of what's around you or, what's going to happen. When it comes to your perception of things become like intimidating. It's like everything seems harder than what it is, or things seem overbearing. The perception of things seem like they don't really have context. Like, why is this happening? Why do I have to do this? Like, what is the reason? It's harder to understand why you're doing something and see that bigger picture of it. So in that moment, it just feels bad. And who likes to do bad things? Obviously, none of us. If something makes us feel bad, we don't want to do it. So that's why it gets kind of hard, and then you get aggravated and stressed, and it becomes this somewhat never-ending cycle until you get the strength, courage to kind of climb that ladder of your mind and get to a space where, although you may be literally in the same situation, mentally you're not. You can handle things differently or see things differently. So from perception, you then move on to the narrative of what's around you, what's happening in your world or in your story. And that narrative in a lower perspective can somewhat be a state of fear, or you can feel like your world is heading into chaos, destruction, or it just seems like things aren't going to work out the way they should work out. Mind you, everything works out for your highest good, whether you realize it in that moment or not. Just putting that out there because it's important to know. But when you're in a lower perspective, you can't even think that. It feels like the world gonna crumble at some point. Everything seems scary, and you accept this narrative of fear, right? It's like you're afraid of what may happen or what won't happen. Everything is kind of scary. You're afraid. And then that obviously pulls over into your experience, and that starts to manifest into your reality. And then you start to have literal fear and anxiety and all these different mental disorders. Yeah. Being at a lower perspective can literally develop mental disorders. You can develop mental disorders from it. And which is why it's very important for us to be aware of where we are mentally. And it's a perspective, your state of consciousness. If you're stuck in lower states of consciousness, life is harder. I'm just personal experience. I'm telling you guys, I'm not old or nothing, but I'm 22, and I've been alive for a bit now, and I've experienced some stuff, and realizing that, okay, in a sense, you really do create your reality based off of where your mental space is. And if you're in a bad space mentally, you're going to manifest and create bad things around you. And that goes with it. When you climb this ladder of consciousness, which I'm not necessarily encouraging anyone to do, especially if you're younger, live your life. Things will happen as they're supposed to happen. But for those that are aware of this ladder, it's good. It's good to climb it, and it's good to at least try to. And when I say try, I mean, putting in the effort, the groundwork to build and help yourself grow and nurture yourself and accept yourself and embrace yourself and really just learn to love yourself and understand yourself and God more. That all helps you climb that ladder, and there might be a lot of steps or on that ladder that you got to go up. There might be a lot, but each thing is going to count to help bring you to that higher point in your mind. So other things that you can experience from a lower perspective: not being able to sleep, bad dreams. You could it's a sleep thing. I forgot what it's called, but when you have like that, it's like when you're paralyzed and you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't move, but you see all these demons and stuff. I forgot what it's called, but that you can develop that. And paralyzed. I forgot what it's called, but nobody wants it to happen because that's low-key scary. Yeah, and then agitation is the last experience you'll probably experience or manifest from having a lower perspective. So now let's jump into this higher perspective. It says from a higher perspective, you can see the big picture. In this state, you feel more connected, creative, caring, and life feels like a video game. And challenges seem smaller and much more approachable. So here you have a complete opposite of a lower perspective, right? And the higher perspective, things are easier. Literally says it feels like a video game, and it's true. It does. It does. A little stupid example, but the other day, there was a little issue going on in the morning on my way to work, and I remember I was like, man, how am I gonna get out of this problem, or how am I gonna solve this issue? I remember I put on my glasses, and then all of a sudden everything felt like I was in GTA. I solved that problem in like 4 seconds. I don't know how it happened or why it happened, but it did happen. And I was just like, yo, in my head, right when I was thinking about it, it seemed a lot worse than what it was. But then for some reason, once I was like, all right, let me just stop, pray about it, and just kind of surrender the situation and know that it's all going to work out how it should. It worked out literally how it should. And I was just like, oh, okay. Goes to show you, you really don't have to worry about certain things in your life. But yeah, at a higher perspective, things seem more zoomed out. It's like being an eagle and you get to see everything around you. Eagles have a 360 view where they don't even have to really turn around or turn their head to see everything around them. Incredible. You get to see the fine details in life. And your perception is literally bigger. You have a bigger understanding of you, the world, your place in the world, spiritual things, just all of that. You have a big picture understanding. Now, the narrative in this headspace in a higher perspective is no big deal. Nothing is a big deal in a higher perspective because you know everything is going to work out there. You know everything is going to work out how it should. Therefore, you have nothing to worry about. You have nothing to stress over. It's no big deal. It's going to all work itself out. That experience then becomes a good experience, right? When nothing's a big deal, you don't have to worry. Then what manifests into your life is positive things. Your experience gets better. You have a calm, clear, and confident existence and experience that happens in your life. And I think that's so beautiful because how many of us need that, right? Sometimes I need it. I mean, granted, for the most part, I try, or at least tend to think from a higher perspective, but I'm human, so I definitely have those days, and sometimes, and maybe a couple of days where I'm down bad, and when I'm in that space, you know, it's hard to think from a higher perspective, but then I remember, okay, it's all going to be okay. I don't have to worry about this. Me worrying is a form of praying, praying for the things that I don't want in my life. And so, no big deal, and it is what it is, will carry you a long way. Let's just say that. It's all about the experience that you want to have at the end of the day. If you want to stay in a space where life seems hard, then you'll stay there. But if you don't, then you'll do what you need to do in order to work your way to a higher perspective or a higher level of consciousness. And it goes deeper than this because there are several layers of consciousness. The highest state being enlightenment, which a lot of us may not see on this lifetime. But I guarantee we can get to the joy, love, and peace place. Guaranteed. And those are all higher perspectives. But most of society, most of us, we tend to stay at the lower energies or perspectives or mind sets and all of that, and consciousness of fear, guilt, shame, grief, those things that really just suppress the spirit and kind of keep you feeling like you're boxed in. Those are things that will have you viewing life in a very negative way, honestly. So just be careful of that. I hope this podcast was able to bring some awareness to higher and lower perspectives and maybe even help you to see where you reside in those. And if you notice that, oh, wow, I'm kind of in a lower perspective or conscious, maybe then start to do what you can to, climb your way up this ladder. And when I say climb this ladder, it's good to know God is at the top of the ladder. So if you're trying to reach power, plenty, all of these positive, abundant things, God. That's where you start. Sometimes you got to crack open that Bible. Sometimes you got to pray. Faith is yours, but it's your faith at the end of the day. If it's about what you believe in and how you believe in it, how much you believe in it. That's how the results happen. If you don't believe in what you're doing or what you're seeing, then it doesn't necessarily matter. But when you do believe, then things happen. So if you are someone who struggles with seeing things from a lower perspective, try to take yourself out of your own shoes and think, if I was somebody else, how would I handle this? That was probably a terrible advice. So don't necessarily do that. But I just mean, instead of thinking of yourself in the situation, think of yourself in a higher perspective in how you would handle the situation. So just imagine yourself as that complete being who now has everything that they need, desire, want, all of that. They are completed. They have everything that they want, need, and desire, right? And now they can see things from a higher perspective. That version of yourself may be 40. I don't know. It may have blue hair. I don't know. But whatever version of that self is, use that. Think of it from that perspective and be like, okay, how would 40-year-old me handle this situation? How would higher perspective me handle this situation? How would the higher version of myself handle this situation? My favorite thing to say is, how would Jesus handle this situation? And that's a great way to kind of help you make better decisions, make wiser decisions. Last thing I have to say before closing out, I've said this before on my podcast plenty of times, but your present moment is a present. It is a gift, and whatever you do, whatever choices, actions, decisions that you make in the present will definitely affect your future. So if you are planting seeds of love, life, truth, joy, abundance, all these good things, and viewing things from a higher perspective, because that's what this is about, in order to make in order to have a higher perspective and see the big picture, and you can't, you have to, or I guess, let me back up here. Planting seeds and, laying the groundwork for your future is having a higher perspective, right? Because you're doing these things now because they're going to pay off in the future. Does that make sense? But yeah, so whatever you do in the present moment, put a lot into it. If you are trying to level up in life, work, career, spiritually, put a lot into it. Do it now in the moment, in the present, because it's the present. And watch those things manifest as life in the future. You'll be amazed. Maybe 6 months from now, your whole world could change for the better, right? Or even from the worse if you decide to stay in a lower perspective. Now, I'm just playing. It'll still work out, even if you're thinking from that way. But, you could speed things up if you wanted to. Let's just say that. But on that note, I'm going to close out this podcast. Thank you guys for listening. I very much appreciate it. I hope you're able to learn something or gain something from this. If you weren't, I hope it was at least entertaining. God bless you guys. I hope you are able to gain higher perspectives and perceptions of life. God bless, and have a beautiful summer.